welcome to another 31 Days of Horror 2015 segment. We're getting close to the end of October, so that means we're getting close to the end of this segment, well, this series. In today's video, I'm going to talk about a horror sci-fi film called War of the Satellites. It's from 1958, directed by the great Roger Corman. I'm not going to go into who he is. You should know. I've already covered him in, I think, at least two previous videos in this particular 2015 31 Days of Horror. But it is one of the films that finishes off this sci-fi classics DVD and allows us to get into that. It's essentially, the film is about the Earth and their space program. They're trying to get satellites, deep space satellites out there, but every time they launch them up, apparently they're manned, oddly enough, manned satellites, but so I'm guessing they're not really satellites, they're more like spaceships, whatever. But every time they go up, apparently they get destroyed. So eventually, you know, the scientists down on Earth, the guys in charge of the program, decide, you know what, I'm not going to send any more astronauts up there by themselves. I'm going, because I got, you know, somebody's got to figure this out. And of course, the reason why they're getting destroyed is because aliens do not want man to expand beyond the planet. Essentially, they see them as a blight on the Earth, and a sort of, you know, the United Nations of Earth wants to expand, and the United Federation of Planets, yeah, whatever, doesn't want them to expand. So these aliens, essentially, at first, you know, they're the ones destroying these spaceship satellites in space. They're trying to destroy things on Earth in order to stop them, but, you know, eventually the team that's in charge gets on their spaceship and they go up and they're gonna go and deal with this. At first, when I was watching, I was like halfway through the movie, which is only about, you know, an hour long. I was like, oh man, this isn't gonna count for my 31 Days of Horror, because it really did seem like a straight up sci-fi film. Yes, there's aliens, but you know, if aliens are just blowing up ships in space and nothing's happening, then it's more like Star Trek and Star Wars than it is like War of the Worlds, right? So it wasn't until they start getting, I mean, some of it's on Earth as well, but more so in space. Essentially, the aliens are able to take on the appearance of humans. And you see you can almost get the foreshadowing there, right? And so they're going around murdering people, trying to, you know, stop this thing from getting out there. And so it then becomes this, you know, aliens killing humans, you know, and how they're going about it and impersonating and all that kind of stuff. And they've got, you know, weird special powers and, you know, alien powers. And so then I was like, okay, no, this definitely, I can definitely put this into the 31 Days of Horror. It has taken a twist here. It's not just space battles. It is now aliens murdering humans in order to stop them from populating space. Yeah, it was actually quite good. Like, I honestly, if you can find this release, the DVD, the Roger Corman Cult Classics Triple Feature Sci-Fi Classics from Shout, pick it up. All three of these movies I've reviewed. I'm reviewing one now, reviewed two earlier. It's definitely worth grabbing. All of them I really, really enjoyed. You know, they are from that 50s sci-fi schlock period. But, you know, if you can get past the look of aliens and such like that, and the low budget effects, they're actually quite entertaining. And even the effects and stuff aren't that bad. They're actually quite good. I mean, compared to today's standards, whatever, it's not that great, but it's still very enjoyable. In this film, there's a lot of people in the cast. I'm talking like lots, because you got people who are, you know, all the scientists and politicians and military personnel who are on Earth. So there's all sorts of those actors and characters. And then you got all the ones who are the main characters from that who are going into space, go on the spaceship. So you got all these other characters on there. But I'm only really going to talk about two of the actors here. One is sort of like the female lead, and that's Susan Cabot, who did a fair number, you know, like a few, I don't know, 15 to 20 movies or something from that time period, including the Wasp Woman, classic, Machine Gun Kelly, Viking Women, Ride Clear of Diablo, things like that, Carnival Rock, you know, a lot of the standard, you know, a lot of Roger Corman stuff and such, from spaghetti westerns to sci-fis to gangster films, what, you know, like all sorts of that kind of mixture of genres that Roger Corman and such was putting out at that time period. So it was nice to see her again. Clearly, if you're a fan of the Roger Corman films and you've seen enough of them, I just remembered her from The Wasp Woman. And she was also, when I looked her up, she was also in a film called Surrender Hell, which I think I've seen, but the title completely, you know, was not in my mind when I saw it. But I recently watched Battle Los Angeles, where, you know, the troops that are in that, if you've seen it, they keep saying surrender hell, surrender hell. That's sort of their battle call type thing, right? And they tell the story of where that surrender hell comes from, and here it is, the movie. I was just like, it's so weird that those two came together. I was just, something I'm just saying. It means nothing about this movie, means nothing about Susan Cabot. It's just a story I'm telling, so take it what you will. The other person of note is the main character here. The legend that is Dick Miller. I think there was recently a documentary that was made about Dick Miller. I can't remember what it is, but it's got Dick Miller in the title. If I think of it, I will mention it again. But he is one of those guys who was in like a billion million things. He has roles in like over 100 movies, and that guy Dick Miller, that guy Dick Miller, that's the name of the documentary. Oh, I couldn't think of it. And the beautiful thing about Dick Miller is he is a working actor. He is a kind of guy who doesn't care what his role was, whether it was a lead, whether it was a supporting role, whether it was a unionized small speaking role, or whether it was like an extra. I mean, there's so much stuff where he's not even, you know, credited in it, and it's just amazing. Over like 150 movies, actually, now that I think about it. He's probably almost up to 200. I mean, I know he's been in movies like even recently, even though he's, you know, I'm trying to think, he was probably born in like the 20s. I'm not talking about, you know, like the 1920s. Like, he is old. The dude is old, and I think he's still getting some kind of roles. Either that or, you know, like, maybe not so much anymore. I don't know that he can act anymore, but it's amazing, you know, like the amount of films that he's in. And honestly, he's Dick Miller. You may not recognize the name Dick Miller. If you really know film, if you really know this like genre film and stuff, you should. But if I put up a picture of Dick Miller, you should definitely recognize who he is. To give you an idea, I mean, just to show you how much of an influence he was, Joe Dante cast him in Gremlins 2: The New Batch. So, you know, you may recognize him from that more modern film. He played the role of Murray Futterman. Dante then also put him in The Howling. Actually, I think The Howling's before Gremlins 2. But he was in that one. He was the bookstore owner, Walter Paisley. Now, remember that name, Walter Paisley, because in the film from 1986, the sort of like sci-fi, anti-teenage from Empire Pictures, Chopping Mall, one of my favorites. I'm a huge Empire Pictures fan. He also played the role of Walter Paisley. Different character, same name. And that's because it's a nod to the 1959 film from Roger Corman, A Bucket of Blood, where Dick Miller plays the main character of Walter Paisley. So that just goes to show you, I mean, like, there's so much influence of Dick Miller and Roger Corman and people who came, you know, later on, that they actually did these homages using the same actor playing a character with the same name. Like, how awesome is that? But he was also in Joe Dante's Piranha. Joe Dante loves him, obviously, right? Like, you can't really get, you know, rid of him. Barely. He's in all of Joe Dante's movies. If Joe Dante had the choice, I'm probably sure he would have put Dick Miller in everything. And in Piranha, he plays Buck Gardner. He also had a role in Roger Corman's the original Little Shop of Horrors, playing Burson Fouch. You know, that's the one where Jack Nicholson plays, you know, the dentist type thing. And then if you're thinking about newer movies and considering Scream Factory just released it, he is also in the film Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, where he plays Uncle Willie. So yeah, I mean, Dick Miller, I grew up with Dick Miller. Dick Miller was in so much of what I you know, watched, whether it be the old Roger Corman flicks, like stuff like the Empire Pictures and Chopping Mall, or, you know, right up until Demon Knight. Like everything I was watching, like growing up, it seemed to be Dick Miller showing up here. You know, here I am, let's watch Gremlins. Oh, here's Dick Miller. Hey, what do you know? But I didn't know who he was. I just recognized his face, right? It wasn't until I was probably in university that I really got an appreciation for who Dick Miller really was. So yeah, it's awesome that, you know, here I am coming back watching a movie I've never seen before, at least not that I remember ever seeing before. War of the Satellites, a Roger Corman flick, and of course, Dick Miller is Roger Corman. He is a mainstay of Roger Corman films. So here he is again, and I'm like, and it's a younger one. It took me a second to realize who it was, because obviously I'm more familiar with an older Dick Miller than a younger Dick Miller, but at the same time, you know who you can recognize him, right? Like, it's a younger version of him, but you're like, yeah, it is. That's Dick Miller. Awesome. And so I was really, you know, that's one of the reasons why I actually enjoyed this film probably a bit more than most people might. If you don't know who Dick Miller is, you're not going to have that nostalgia factor going into it and going, yeah, Dick Miller. But that aside, still really enjoyed War of the Satellites. I mean, yeah, I mean, it almost has if you like Doctor Who, it almost has that kind of a Doctor Who thing without the eccentric doctor type thing. But even still, I think Dick Miller is I guess you could substitute him for the Doctor in a way. Not really, but, you know, as the characters, they're kind of playing the same role, right? And so yeah, there's a lot of really weird stuff that goes on in War of the Satellites. You got murder, you got mystery, you've obviously got, you know, like intergalactic conspiracies, and it's just, yeah, it's a story that whole idea of, you know, man is a blight on the earth, and huge powers that the aliens are, who are more advanced and have already probably gone through all of this already. They don't want this getting out into their area. So, you know, stop them now, let them grow up, because, you know, the Earthlings are just they're the children of the universe. Let them grow up a little bit. If they destroy themselves, hey, that's their own prerogative. But if they don't, eventually they should come to terms with, you know, the way things peacefully should coexist in the universe. And unfortunately, we're still not there yet. And I think it's going to be a long time, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. You know, if we can get rid of people who are just selfish about certain things and just using, I think that's one of the problems. That's the reason why we're, you know, like, people always write about us as parasites. We're always, you know, just using and consuming. There's not enough of reducing and just using what you need rather than using what you can. Not even what you want. You know, like, we all want stuff, and yeah, it's great to get stuff that you want, and we always want more than we can have. But it's one of those things where you constantly find people going beyond their satisfaction level. You know, all you can eat buffets is a great, you know, portrayal of that mentality, where you can go and eat. You can go and eat a lot, but it's an all you can eat, not all you want to eat, or not eating as much as you feel like until you're full. No, it's an all you can eat. It's essentially the mentality and the whole idea behind that type of a restaurant is to eat as much food as your body can humanly handle, not what it needs. Not even the minimum needs, you know, to survive. Not even the minimum, you know, like, just needs to feel, you know, sustained. Not even just the amount to feel full. Not even the amount to feel, you know, like, satisfied. That moment, you all know where it is, where it's like you're full, but you're just sort of over that full point, so you're like, okay, this is good. No, you hit that mark, and you know what you do at an all-you-can-eat buffet? You go get another plate. So you take that moment where you're already full and a little bit, and you go, I'm going to see if I can fit more food in my pie hole here. And yeah, you didn't need it, you didn't even really want it, but because you could, because it was there, because you had the opportunity, because it's all you can eat, you are going to consume more than is humanly, well, it's just gross. It's just gross. And I'm not saying I don't do that. I can't lie. I mean, Chinese food is one of my favorite foods, and I love an all-you-can-eat buffet full of Chinese food. And it's not so much that I want to eat more than I can possibly do. It's that there's just so much variety there, and I want everything, and I wanted everything in my mouth. And yeah, so I'm guilty of that. It's not that I'm pointing fingers and, you know, like, no, this is the pot calling the kettle black, very much so. But it's one of those mentalities that it's going to take us time to get over. And one of the reasons why the theme of humans being a blight on the earth, aliens not liking humanity, is going to continue to come up in science fiction and sci-fi horror for years and years to come. But yeah, War of the Satellites, definitely recommend checking it out if you at all into, you know, old black and white sci-fi horrors, Roger Corman films. And again, like I said, if you can find this DVD, pick it up. It's a great release, all three of them, and they're all, you know, they're all, yeah, 2 discs here. Attack of the Crab Monsters and Not of This Earth, because they're generally in history they were played back to back, are on one DVD. The other DVD gets War of the Satellites plus the bonus features. So Normally I don't plug a DVD in these things, but that's one I'm gonna plug simply because I enjoyed everything on it. And yeah, that is my review of War of the Satellites for this segment of 31 Days of Horror 2015. I'm gonna guess there's at least one more to come, so stay tuned. Until next time, take care. Have a good one.